forget to wear your headphones. Welcome home, Ashen One. Ashen One, your armor. There are so many new marks. Come closer. Surely your helmet has grown heavy. There is no need for it here. Oh, Ashen One. By that look in your eyes, I can tell you've been through a great deal since we last spoke. Come now. I think you've earned yourself a nice rest. Here, let's sit by the bonfire while you regale me with the stories of your travels. I'm sure you have many tales to tell me about this time. A crab the size of a house. Well, I suppose there are all manner of large creatures in this world. But to think that a crab could be so big. You aren't playing a trick on me, are you? Well, if you promise, I suppose it must be so. But I think I'm more surprised that the cathedral actually could hold 2 giants. It must be such a wonderful sight. Well, if I ever could visit such a place, I'm sure I would have you to keep me safe. But it is my duty to tend to the flame. So, it is here I must remain, so I may guide you on your journey, Ashen One. Though I might not be able to visit such places, I have learned much about the world. Stories of what lies outside find their way in here when weary travelers tell tales of their adventures. Even if they aren't told to me directly, I sometimes overhear visitors discussing their travels. They are all quite different, but some things stay the same. Sadly, the most treacherous details persist through all the stories I've heard. However, no one seems to elaborate on the arduous details of their journeys. Except for one part. I've noticed a theme among these travelers. Many of them tell a tale of a great warrior that has aided them in their time of need. They certainly spare no detail describing the valiant soul that saved them. The brilliant warrior that brought light into their darkest times. It would seem that your deeds bring no shortage of joy to the people you help. Hearing of your adventures is always so fun, Ashen One. But it seems there are more pertinent matters to address. Now tell me, what is it that's left you so disheartened? The world outside is quite inhospitable, Ashen One. I've no doubt that the beings you faced have tested your resolve time and time again. But you can't give up on your journey now. These beings may seem daunting, but in truth, none of them are invincible. But you and I, Ashen One, We are beings that can't be slain. So long as you have a reason to keep fighting, there is nothing, man or beast, that can defeat you. And as long as I'm by your side, I will help you overcome any challenges that you might face. As long as you bring me souls, I shall turn them into your strength. I am glad to hear it. But you may not have known that there was once a time when firekeepers were not needed for such things. The undead that journeyed to revive the first flame needed only themselves to become stronger. A few stories of those times have been passed down by firekeepers. One of my favorites, for when I'm bored, is a story about a sorcerer who was named after his own hat. I swear it is true. Or at least as true as a story passed down for generations can be. Although, why someone would be named after the hat, I have no idea. But thinking about what that sorcerer's hat might have looked like always brings me joy. Perhaps he wore a crown and the story has just been altered by word of mouth. And as much as I like that story, it's not even my favorite one. Well, it's a story I tell myself when I feel alone. A story about a warrior that had a sun painted on his armor and shield. I think there's a version where the sun was painted on his helmet, but that part isn't always as consistent. What has stayed consistent is that this warrior was always a friend. The kind of friend that would fight for you and cheer you on against impossible odds. The kind of friend that would stay by your side no matter what. Ashen One, the firekeepers of that time were little more than passing faces to the solitary undead. Without a necessity for their aid, the undead needn't interact with them, much less form any bond or attachment. The world must have been lonely to the firekeepers of that time. I sometimes wonder if that is why their stories have been passed down for so long. Stories were the only company that they had. I thought about that story of the Sunlight Warrior nearly every day. It kept me company for as long as I've known it. But recently, it's been different. I used to imagine that warrior always had its helmet on, since the story never mentioned their face, but since you're so much like them, I found myself imagining you as the warrior. I'd like to believe that nothing will ever harm you, but I know better than that. It feels dreadful knowing that somewhere out there you're facing these arduous trials alone, while I can only sit here and wait for your return. This is quite hard for me to explain. I've never felt this way before. But when you leave, all I can think about is when you'll return. When I'll see you next. Forgive me, Ashen One. Speaking of such things will only burden you further. Well, if you permit it, then, if I could, I would spend every moment with you, Ashen One. I love you. My only wish is that you might feel the same. You do? Oh, Ashen One. I was so worried you would not feel the same. I spent so many days alone, tending to the fire, that I had all but given up hope of it ever changing. I would only have my stories and the passing faces to keep me company. Like the firekeepers of ages long since past. When I met you, it was like that story of the Sunlight Warrior to come to life. I was so happy. Everything else seemed like a dream. After all, the one thing I'd always wished for was to have someone who would not leave my side, and now it seems that I finally found that. I don't want to ask more of you than I already have. However, I would like to make a request of thee. Ashen One, promise me that you'll stay by my side. Tell me stories of your travels and tell me when you're in pain. And for as long as you do, I will be by your side through the darkness. Even if the first flame fades, I will be there to light your way. I know eventually you'll have to go back to your journey, but for now, could you stay by my side a little longer? The fire is so soothing, and I want to hear more about your adventures, even if only for a little while.